Welcome to Story Planet, where every tale is a journey to magical places far and wide. Tonight, we invite you to float gently into the enchanted world of the Cloud Kingdom, a place where whimsical creatures and glowing stars await. Let your imagination soar as you join Pip on a peaceful adventure among the clouds. Get cozy, relax, and let the magic of the Cloud Kingdom carry you into a restful sleep. Pip and the Cloud Kingdom. In a quiet village surrounded by rolling hills, a boy named Pip often found himself daydreaming. He was a curious boy, full of wonder about the world beyond the familiar paths and meadows of his home. The village was peaceful, but there was always a part of Pip that longed for something more. Something magical. One warm afternoon, as the golden sunlight danced on the tall grass, Pip's eyes caught something unusual. In the distance, shimmering like a mirage, was a ladder. But this was no ordinary ladder. It was made entirely of light, glowing softly against the blue sky. It seemed to beckon him, inviting him toward the clouds above. Pip's heart quickened with excitement. Without hesitation, he walked toward the ladder, feeling drawn to its mysterious glow. As he stood before it, he marveled at its beauty. The ladder's rungs were warm under his hands, as if made from the very rays of the sun. He took a deep breath, placed his foot on the first step, and began to climb. With each step, the world below grew smaller, the trees and fields fading into a soft blur of green and gold. Higher and higher he went, the air becoming lighter, the breeze softer. Soon, Pip found himself surrounded by nothing but the soft glow of clouds. It was as if he had entered another world, one far above the ordinary village he had known. As Pip reached the top of the ladder, he emerged into a kingdom unlike anything he had ever seen. It was a place made entirely of clouds, soft and shimmering under the bright sky. Floating castles with towers of mist stood tall in the distance, and creatures with feathery wings glided gracefully through the air, leaving trails of stardust in their wake. The air was filled with a quiet hum, a melody that seemed to drift from the clouds themselves. Pip stood in awe, taking it all in. The Cloud Kingdom, he thought. A place of dreams and light, far from anything he had ever imagined. He felt a sense of wonder and excitement, knowing that this was the beginning of something extraordinary. Pip wandered through the Cloud Kingdom, his footsteps soft on the misty ground. The air here was light and cool, and as he moved through the floating pathways, he marveled at the world around him. The castles in the distance shimmered like distant stars, and everywhere he looked, tiny cloud creatures darted through the air, their wings leaving delicate sparkles behind. As Pip explored, he couldn't help but feel a sense of peace. This place, with its soft light and gentle breezes, felt like a dream. The cloud pathways seemed to guide him forward, and soon he found himself approaching a grand castle that towered above the rest. It was made of swirling mist, its walls glowing faintly with the light of distant stars. This, he knew, was the palace of Queen Circe. The doors to the palace opened before him, a soft breeze carrying him inside. The interior was vast, filled with the soft hum of the wind, and in the center of the grand hall stood Queen Circe herself. She was tall and graceful, her form made of the purest clouds, her movements slow and elegant like the drifting of the sky on a calm day. Queen Circe turned her gaze to Pip, her eyes kind and filled with wisdom. She had been expecting him, and as she spoke, her voice was soft, like the whisper of the wind through the trees. There was a quiet power in her presence, one that filled Pip with both awe and comfort. In the heart of the Cloud Kingdom, a great treasure had gone missing. The star that controlled the winds and kept the kingdom afloat had disappeared, and without it, the kingdom would soon drift too far from the earth below. The one responsible, she believed, was a mischievous creature named Fluffernix, known for his playful tricks. Though Fluffernix meant no harm, his actions had put the entire kingdom in jeopardy. As Queen Cirrus spoke, Pip felt a sense of purpose growing within him. Though he was just a boy from a quiet village, he had always dreamed of adventure, and now, standing in the presence of a queen in a land of clouds, he knew that this was his chance to do something extraordinary. With a calm resolve, Pip agreed to help. He would find the missing star and return it to its rightful place, restoring balance to the Cloud Kingdom. The Queen's soft smile filled him with warmth, and as he left the palace, the wind seemed to carry him forward on his journey, guiding him toward the adventure that awaited. Pip's journey through the Cloud Kingdom was just beginning. As he moved away from the palace, the path beneath his feet seemed to float, soft and light, carrying him forward as if guided by the wind itself. The air was fresh, filled with the scent of rain. The sea and a soft mist hung in the distance, hinting at the wonders that lay ahead. Before long, Pip found himself standing before the floating gardens, a breathtaking sight. These gardens weren't like any he had seen back home. They hovered in the air, their flowers and plants growing weightlessly, as though the clouds themselves nurtured their growth. The petals of each flower shimmered with soft colors, changing with every breeze that passed through them, while vines twisted and curled, floating delicately above the mist. The beauty of it all made Pip pause, his heart filling with a quiet sense of awe. Here in this magical place, even the smallest details felt enchanted. It was as if the entire garden was alive, not just with plants, but with the soft hum of the wind that wove through the leaves and flowers. Every step he took stirred the garden gently, causing petals to flutter and glow with a soft, ethereal light. As Pip wandered deeper into the gardens, he noticed small, round creatures bouncing gently between the flowers. They looked like tiny clouds, their bodies puffed up and fluffy, with little wings that fluttered as they moved. These were the puff bees, the garden's friendly inhabitants, who lived among the flowers and helped pollinate the floating plants. One of the puff bees, curious about Pip, floated closer. Its tiny wings buzzed softly, and Pip couldn't help but smile as it circled around him, leaving a trail of sparkling dust in the air. It was as though the garden itself was welcoming him, inviting him to explore further. But Pip knew he couldn't linger for too long. He was on a mission, and somewhere in this vast kingdom, Fluffernix had hidden the missing star. The puff bees, sensing his purpose, began to guide him through the garden, leading him toward a path that shimmered faintly in the distance. The path wound through the floating flowers and glowing vines, leading Pip to a hidden grove within the garden. Here, the air was cooler, and the mist grew thicker, creating a sense of mystery. In the center of the grove stood a large, glowing tree, its branches reaching high into the air, covered in delicate silver leaves that sparkled like stardust. Pip approached the tree, feeling a quiet sense of wonder. The tree seemed to pulse with life, its soft glow filling the air with warmth. It was here that the puff bees paused, their tiny wings fluttering as they hovered around the tree. This, Pip realized, was where he would find the first clue to Fluffernix's hiding place. He reached out, touching the cool bark of the tree. As his hand rested on the surface, a soft hum filled the air, and the tree's silver leaves began to shimmer more brightly. From the branches above, a small glowing orb floated down, landing gently in Pip's hand. It was warm to the touch, filled with a faint, flickering light, like a star caught in the mist. This was no ordinary clue. It was a gift from the garden itself. Pip knew that the orb would guide him on the next part of his journey, lighting the way through the Cloud Kingdom, helping him find Fluffernix and return the missing star. With a deep breath, Pip tucked the glowing orb into his pocket and turned back toward the path. The puff bees buzzed softly around him, their tiny wings filling the air with a calming rhythm. He smiled, feeling a deep sense of peace. Though the journey ahead was uncertain, the kindness of the floating gardens and its inhabitants had filled him with hope. As Pip continued his journey through the Cloud Kingdom, the landscape began to change. The air grew sweeter, and the sky above took on a soft pink hue, as though it had been painted with cotton candy clouds. A light drizzle began to fall, but this was no ordinary rain. Instead of water, tiny droplets of candy floated down from the sky, shimmering as they fell gently to the ground. Pip looked up in wonder. It was a candy rainstorm, a magical event that only happened on the rarest of days in the Cloud Kingdom. The clouds overhead were thick and fluffy like spun sugar, and from them rained tiny drops of sweetness, candies of all shapes and colors. They sparkled in the air before landing softly on the misty ground, creating a scene that felt straight out of a dream. Pip stretched out his hand, catching a few of the candy raindrops as they fell. Each drop was light and sweet, dissolving on his tongue like a sugary breeze. The air around him was filled with the scent of vanilla and honey, and the ground sparkled with the colors of the rain, pink, blue, and soft lavender, all blending together in a rainbow of light. As the candy rain fell, Pip noticed something moving in the distance. A group of cloud creatures, each as fluffy as the clouds themselves, danced in the rain, their tiny feet skipping across the misty ground. They seemed to be celebrating, twirling and laughing as the candy droplets landed around them. These creatures, Pip realized, were part of the magic of the candy rainstorm. They only appeared during these rare showers, drawn to the sweetness in the air. Their laughter was soft, carried on the wind like the sound of distant chimes, and their joy was infectious. Watching them, Pip felt a lightness in his heart, as though the storm itself was filling him with a sense of wonder and happiness. But as magical as the rainstorm was, Pip knew he had to stay focused on his mission. Somewhere beyond this sugary landscape, Fluffernix was still hiding with the stolen star. Yet, even as he pressed forward, Pip couldn't help but feel that the storm itself held a clue. The sweetness in the air, the lightness of the clouds, everything seemed to be pointing him towards something important. As the storm began to clear, the candy rain tapering off into a soft drizzle, Pip spotted a faint shimmer in the distance. It was subtle, almost hidden behind the mist, but there was no mistaking it. A small, glowing trail that sparkled like stardust, leading further into the kingdom. Pip smiled, his heart light with the excitement of discovery. The candy rainstorm had left behind more than just sweetness. It had revealed the path he needed to take. The shimmering trail, faint though it was, would guide him closer to Fluffernix and the missing star. With renewed determination, Pip followed the stardust trail, leaving the colorful rain behind. The storm had been a gift, a reminder that even in the midst of a great quest, there was always room for joy and wonder. As he walked, the air around him grew cooler, and the landscape began to change once more, the mist thickening as the next part of his adventure unfolded. As Pip continued his journey, the mist around him began to thin, revealing a new part of the Cloud Kingdom. In the distance, he saw shimmering bubbles floating in the air, their surfaces glistening with soft rainbows. As he walked closer, the bubbles multiplied, and soon he found himself standing at the entrance of a magical marketplace, the Bubble Markets. The Bubble Markets were unlike any market Pip had ever seen. Instead of stalls and tents, the goods here floated inside large, translucent bubbles, each one glowing with a soft light. Inside the bubbles, Pip could see all kinds of curious items, magical trinkets, glowing orbs, and tiny, shimmering creatures. Some bubbles contained entire scenes like miniature worlds, with tiny mountains, forests, and rivers, all swirling gently within their glassy walls. The air was filled with the sound of soft laughter and gentle music as cloudfolk wandered through the market, inspecting the bubbles and the treasures they held. The market was alive with energy, yet it had a calm, dreamy atmosphere, as if time moved more slowly here. Every step Pip took felt like walking through a dream, where the ordinary rules of the world no longer applied. As Pip wandered deeper into the market, he couldn't help but marvel at the beauty around him. Each bubble seemed to tell its own story, floating gently through the air, its contents glowing with magic. The light in the market shifted constantly, as the bubbles reflected the soft colors of the sky, casting a warm glow over everything. Pip's eyes were drawn to one bubble in particular. It was larger than the others, and inside, a soft blue light pulsed rhythmically like the beat of a distant star. Intrigued, Pip moved closer, watching as the light flickered and swirled within the bubble. There was something familiar about it, something that reminded him of the missing star he had set out to find. He reached out, gently touching the surface of the bubble. It was cool under his fingertips, and as he made contact, the light within seemed to respond, growing brighter for a moment before fading back into a soft glow. Pip knew this wasn't the star he was searching for, but it was connected somehow. Another clue on his journey. As Pip continued exploring the bubble markets, he noticed a figure watching him from the corner of the market. The figure was tall and cloaked in mist, their face hidden in the shadows. Pip felt a chill run down his spine, but something about the figure's presence felt important. He moved closer, and as he did, the figure stepped forward, revealing themselves to be an older cloudfolk, their eyes wise and knowing. "You're searching for something, aren't you?" the figure said, their voice soft but clear, like the sound of wind through the trees. Pip nodded. "I'm looking for a star that controls the winds of this kingdom." The old cloud folk smiled, a knowing look in their eyes. "Fluffernuss has it, doesn't he?" they asked, their voice gentle. "He always was a playful one, but he doesn't realize the trouble he's caused." Pip nodded again, feeling a sense of relief. This figure knew about Fluffernuss, and perhaps they could help guide him. "Do you know where I can find him?" The figure's gaze softened, and they gestured toward the far end of the market, where the bubbles floated in a swirling dance. "Fluffernuss is hiding near the River of Stars," they said. "It's a place of great magic, where the stars flow like water. But be careful, Fluffernuss is mischievous, and he won't give up the star easily." Pip thanked the figure, his heart lightened by the knowledge. The River of Stars was his next destination, and with each step he was getting closer to finding the missing star. As he turned to leave, the old cloud folk smiled once more, their voice a soft whisper in the wind. "Remember," they said, "sometimes the answers we seek are hidden in the most unexpected places." With those words echoing in his mind, Pip left the bubble markets behind, his thoughts filled with anticipation for what lay ahead. The path to the River of Stars was a journey in itself. The further Pip traveled, the more the landscape of the Cloud Kingdom shifted. The mist around him thickened, and the sky grew darker, filled with a deep indigo light. Stars began to appear overhead, twinkling faintly against the velvety sky, their soft glow illuminating the path before him. As Pip walked, the air grew cooler, and the mist gave way to a new kind of light, a soft, silvery glow that seemed to flow like water. In the distance, Pip saw it, the River of Stars. It stretched out before him, a shimmering river made not of water, but of glowing stardust. The stars moved in gentle waves, flowing endlessly through the landscape, casting a soft, ethereal light over everything. Pip stood at the edge of the river, his heart filled with wonder. He had never seen anything like it. The stars in the river pulsed with a quiet energy, their light reflecting off the misty banks, creating a world that felt both magical and serene. But as beautiful as the river was, Pip knew it held a challenge. He needed to cross it, and the river wasn't something that could be crossed by ordinary means. The stars flowed like water, but their light was fragile, and Pip sensed that if he wasn't careful, the river could sweep him away. He took a deep breath, calming his mind. The journey had taught him much so far, about patience, about trusting in the magic of the Cloud Kingdom, and about the power of belief. As he stood at the river's edge, he realized that crossing the River of Stars wasn't about force or strategy. It was about trust. Pip closed his eyes for a moment, listening to the gentle hum of the stars as they flowed past. The air around him was filled with a soft, melodic sound, like the distant echo of a lullaby. Slowly, he stepped forward, placing his foot on the surface of the river. To his surprise, the stars beneath his feet shifted gently, holding him up as though they were solid ground. Pip smiled, a feeling of peace washing over him. The River of Stars had accepted him, and as he walked, the stars supported him, carrying him gently across. With each step, the stars beneath his feet glowed brighter, guiding him across the river. The path was long, but the river's light was constant, never faltering. Pip moved slowly, taking in the beauty of the glowing stars around him, feeling their warmth and energy. It was as though the river itself was guiding him, lighting the way toward the next part of his journey. When he finally reached the other side, Pip felt a deep sense of accomplishment. The river of stars had been a challenge, but he had crossed it with trust and calmness. As he stood on the far bank, the stars continued to flow behind him, their light a constant reminder of the magic that filled the Cloud Kingdom. Ahead of him lay Fluffernix's hideaway, hidden somewhere in the misty landscape. Pip knew the final leg of his journey was near, and with the stars at his back, he felt ready for whatever lay ahead. As Pip stepped away from the river of stars, the air around him grew thicker with mist, and the light of the stars softened into a pale glow that barely illuminated the path ahead. The world felt quieter now, the playful sounds of the Cloud Kingdom replaced by a gentle hush, like the stillness before a storm. Pip's heart quickened. Somewhere beyond this mist lay Fluffernix's hideaway, and with it, the missing star that he had come so far to find. The landscape around him was different now, more mysterious, with swirling clouds that moved in gentle waves. The path beneath his feet was soft, and with every step, Pip felt as though the ground was shifting, alive with magic. It wasn't long before Pip noticed something unusual in the mist. Ahead, the clouds seemed to part, revealing a small, cozy cave nestled in the side of a floating hill. The entrance to the cave was framed by swirling clouds, and tiny, glowing lights twinkled from within, casting a soft, golden glow across the mist. This, Pip knew, was where Fluffernix was hiding. The closer Pip got to the cave, the more he felt a strange energy in the air. It wasn't menacing, but it was playful, almost mischievous, like the feeling of a trick just waiting to be played. Pip took a deep breath, his heart steadying as he approached the entrance. He had come this far, and nothing could turn him back now. The cave was warm inside, filled with soft, glowing light that seemed to pulse gently, like a heartbeat. The walls were made of swirling mist, and in the center of the cave, floating lazily in the air, was a creature unlike any Pip had ever seen. Fluffernix. Fluffernix was a cloud creature, small and round, with a body made of fluffy clouds and two bright, glowing eyes that twinkled with mischief. He floated effortlessly in the air, his tiny wings fluttering softly as he spun in slow circles, his eyes gleaming with curiosity as he noticed Pip standing at the entrance. For a moment, they both stood there, watching each other. Fluffernix didn't seem surprised to see Pip. In fact, there was something almost playful in his gaze, as though he had been expecting this moment all along. Pip stepped forward, his voice calm and steady. "You've taken something important," he said quietly, his words gentle but firm. "The star that controls the winds of this kingdom. It doesn't belong to you." Fluffernix's eyes sparkled with amusement, and he twirled in the air, letting out a soft, chiming laugh. He floated closer to Pip, his tiny wings beating lightly against the mist. "I didn't mean to cause trouble," Fluffernix seemed to say, his voice not words, but a soft whisper in the air. "It was just a game I wanted to play." Pip could see now that Fluffernix wasn't malicious. He was mischievous, yes, but there was no malice in his actions. He had taken the star not out of cruelty, but out of a desire for attention, for fun. In the quiet glow of the cave, Pip realized that Fluffernux was lonely. "It may have been a game to you," Pip said softly, his voice filled with understanding, "but the Cloud Kingdom needs that star to stay safe. Without it, the winds will stop and the kingdom will drift away." Fluffernux floated back slightly, his glowing eyes dimming for a moment. There was a softness in his gaze now, as though he was beginning to understand the gravity of his actions. He hovered there, silent, his tiny wings fluttering slowly. For a moment the cave was quiet, filled only with the soft hum of the clouds around them. Then, without a word, Fluffernux turned and floated toward the back of the cave. From the misty walls, he pulled a small, glowing object, a star, flickering softly with the same light that Pip had seen in the palace. It was the missing star, the heart of the Cloud Kingdom's winds. Fluffernux floated back to Pip, holding the star in his tiny hands. He offered it to Pip, his glowing eyes filled with apology. Pip took the star gently, feeling its warmth in his hands. It pulsed with a quiet energy, the same energy that had guided him through the kingdom. "Thank you," Pip said softly, his voice filled with kindness. "You've done the right thing." Fluffernux hovered beside him, his playful spirit dimmed for a moment by the weight of his actions. But as Pip turned to leave the cave, Fluffernux followed, his wings fluttering lightly in the mist. It seemed he wasn't ready to be alone again. As they stepped out of the cave and into the misty landscape, Pip smiled. Fluffernux, with all his mischief, had shown him something important, that even the most playful of creatures could understand when it was time to take responsibility. Together, they began the journey back to the Cloud Kingdom, the star safely in Pip's hands and Fluffernux by his side. The journey back to the heart of the Cloud Kingdom felt different now. With the missing star in his hands and Fluffernux floating beside him, Pip felt a deep sense of peace. The mist that had once seemed so mysterious now felt familiar, and the landscape around him, with its swirling clouds and soft light, was filled with a quiet beauty that soothed his heart. As they traveled, the soft glow of the star lit their way, its gentle warmth spreading through the air like a comforting embrace. The stars overhead twinkled brighter, as if welcoming the return of their lost companion. And though the path was long, it felt lighter now, as if the Cloud Kingdom itself was helping to guide them home. Fluffernux stayed close to Pip, his tiny wings fluttering softly as he floated alongside. There was no more mischief in his gaze, only a quiet understanding. He had learned something important today, something about responsibility and the weight of his actions. And though he had been playful and mischievous, Pip could see that Fluffernux had a kind heart. As they neared the palace, the mist began to thin, and the grand towers of the Cloud Kingdom came into view. The soft, swirling walls of the palace shimmered in the distance, their light brighter than ever before. It was as if the entire kingdom was waiting, ready to welcome the return of its most precious treasure. When they reached the palace gates, Pip could see the cloudfolk gathered, their eyes filled with hope. Queen Cirrus stood at the entrance, her graceful form glowing softly in the mist. As Pip approached, holding the star in his hands, a soft breeze swept through the air, carrying with it the sound of distant music. A celebration waiting to begin. Pip stepped forward, the star warm and alive in his hands. As he placed it back in its rightful place in the center of the palace, the air around them seemed to shift. The winds, which had been gentle and slow, began to pick up, swirling through the kingdom with a newfound energy. The stars overhead pulsed with light, their glow reflecting off the soft clouds below, and the entire kingdom seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. Queen Serene stepped forward, her eyes filled with gratitude. "The star has returned," her voice whispered on the breeze, a soft melody in the air. "And with it, the winds of the Cloud Kingdom are restored." The cloud folk cheered softly, their voices like the rustling of leaves in the wind, and the air was filled with a quiet joy. Pip stood there, a sense of accomplishment warming his heart. He had completed his quest, not only by returning the star, but by helping Fluffernix understand the importance of responsibility. Fluffernix, too, seemed changed. He hovered quietly beside Pip, his once mischievous gaze now softened by the events of their journey. The cloud folk welcomed him, no longer seeing him as a troublemaker, but as one of their own, a playful spirit who had learned a valuable lesson. As the winds danced through the kingdom, a celebration began. The air was filled with music and laughter, and the soft glow of stardust twinkled in the sky like fireworks. The Cloud Kingdom was alive with joy, and Pip felt a deep sense of belonging, knowing that he had played a part in restoring the balance. But as the celebration continued, Pip's thoughts drifted back to his village. Though the Cloud Kingdom was a place of wonder and magic, he knew that it was time for him to return home. He had learned much from his journey, about kindness, about responsibility, and about the magic that existed in even the smallest moments. As the night sky filled with stars, Pip said his goodbyes. Queen Serene smiled softly, her eyes filled with warmth. "You will always be welcome here," she said, her voice like a gentle breeze. "The Cloud Kingdom will always be your home among the clouds." With those words, Pip felt a soft breeze lift him, carrying him gently through the mist, back toward the ladder of light that had brought him here. And as he descended, the stars twinkling softly above him, he knew that the magic of the Cloud Kingdom would stay with him, a quiet presence in his heart, guiding him through whatever adventures lay ahead. As Pip descended from the Cloud Kingdom, he couldn't help but look back one last time at the place that had become so familiar to him. The towers of swirling mist and the soft, glowing light of the cloud castles twinkled in the distance, as if bidding him farewell. The winds that once felt fragile now swirled strongly through the kingdom, carrying the quiet hum of contentment through the air. When Pip reached the bottom of the ladder, his feet touching the solid ground of his village once more, he felt the weight of the journey leave him. The village, with its rolling hills and familiar meadows, seemed smaller now. Yet in its simplicity, it felt comforting, like a warm embrace after a long adventure. The sky above was still touched with the faintest glow of the Cloud Kingdom, but the stars here seemed closer, more familiar. Pip breathed in the cool evening air and smiled, his heart filled with peace. He had not only brought back the star to the Cloud Kingdom, but also returned with a deep understanding of what it meant to be part of something greater. The days that followed were filled with quiet reflection. Pip found joy in the simple things, playing in the meadows, watching the clouds drift lazily across the sky and listening to the soft hum of the wind as it moved through the village. It was as if the magic of the Cloud Kingdom had found a place here too, woven gently into the fabric of his everyday life. But there was one thing that remained, a gift from Queen Cirrus, given to Pip before he had left the Cloud Kingdom. In the palm of his hand he carried a tiny cloud, soft and glowing with a faint silver light. It floated above him, always close, a reminder of the magical journey he had taken. The cloud was small, but filled with the same quiet energy that had filled the Cloud Kingdom, and Pip knew it would always be with him, no matter where he went. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink, Pip sat beneath a tall oak tree at the edge of the village. The tiny cloud hovered gently above him, glowing softly in the fading light. He watched as the stars began to appear, twinkling faintly in the darkening sky. His thoughts drifted back to the Cloud Kingdom, to the floating gardens, the candy rainstorm, the river of stars. He thought of Fluffernix, the mischievous cloud creature, and how they had both learned something important about kindness and responsibility. And as he sat there, the peaceful sounds of the village around him, Pip realized something. Every journey, no matter how magical or simple, leaves a mark. The places we visit, the friends we make, the lessons we learn, they stay with us, shaping who we are. And though the Cloud Kingdom was far above, beyond the reach of any ladder or path, its magic was still here, nestled deep in Pip's heart. The stars twinkled brighter now, their light casting a soft glow over the village. The wind, gentle and calm, whispered through the trees, carrying with it the quiet hum of a world filled with wonder. Pip smiled to himself, feeling a deep sense of contentment. His adventure in the clouds had come to an end, but the magic of that journey would stay with him forever. As time passed, Pip's days in the village returned to their usual rhythm. The fields were bright and full of life, the hills green and rolling as far as the eye could see. But there was something different about Pip now, something gentle and quiet, like the soft breeze that swept through the meadows. Though he was back in his village, a part of Pip remained in the clouds. The tiny floating cloud, gifted to him by Queen Cirrus, never left his side. It followed him wherever he went, hovering gently above his head, its soft glow a constant reminder of the adventure he had experienced in the magical Cloud Kingdom. Pip's friends would often ask about the little cloud, curious about its gentle light and the way it floated so effortlessly. But Pip never needed to explain. The cloud's presence alone was enough to share the story, a quiet reminder of the magic that existed in the world, both above and below the clouds. On quiet evenings, when the village was wrapped in the soft light of dusk, Pip would sit beneath his favorite oak tree at the edge of the village, the tiny cloud glowing softly beside him. He would look up at the stars, remembering the river of stars and the gentle hum of the winds that filled the Cloud Kingdom. Each night, as Pip drifted off to sleep, he felt a deep sense of peace. The memories of his adventure floated through his dreams like soft, drifting clouds, reminding him that no matter how far he traveled, the magic of the Cloud Kingdom would always be with him. And in those dreams, Pip often found himself back in the floating gardens, surrounded by glowing flowers and the gentle buzz of puff bees. He would hear the laughter of fluffernucks echoing softly through the mist and feel the quiet hum of the wind that carried him through the candy rainstorm and across the river of stars. But most of all, Pip's dreams were filled with the warmth of the friendships he had made along the way. Zephyr and Gale, with their playful spirits and kind hearts, were never far from his thoughts, and the wisdom of Queen Cirrus stayed with him like a gentle breeze, guiding him through the simple joys of everyday life. As the seasons changed and the years passed, Pip grew older, but the tiny cloud remained as constant as ever, glowing softly by his side. And though the Cloud Kingdom seemed far away, Pip knew that its magic was never truly gone. It lived on in the wind that swept through the village, in the soft light of the stars, and in the quiet moments of wonder that filled each day. The Cloud Kingdom was more than just a place. It was a reminder of the beauty that existed in the world, in both the simplest and the most magical of moments. And for Pip, that was the greatest gift of all. The story of the Cloud Kingdom may have ended, but its magic would live on, carried on the winds of memory, through the soft glow of the tiny cloud that would always float by Pip's side. Years passed, and Pip's village remained much the same. A peaceful place nestled among rolling hills, where the wind whispered softly through the trees and the stars twinkled in the clear night sky. But to those who knew Pip, there was always something a little magical about the boy who had once climbed a ladder of light and returned with a story of the clouds. Though Pip grew older, the tiny cloud never left him. It followed him through the fields, over the hills, and on the quiet paths that led through the village. And when the evening fell and the sky filled with stars, Pip would sit beneath his oak tree, the little cloud glowing softly beside him as he looked up at the sky. For Pip, every cloud, every breeze, every star was a reminder of the magic that filled the world. A world full of wonder and adventure, just waiting to be discovered. And as the wind rustled through the leaves, Pip would smile, knowing that somewhere, high above the village, the Cloud Kingdom was still there, floating quietly in the sky, waiting for its next visitor. And so, the stories of the clouds continued, carried on the winds, whispered softly through the world. A reminder that magic is always closer than we think, as long as we remember to look up. Thank you for joining us on this magical journey to the Cloud Kingdom. If you could imagine its floating castles and playful creatures, we hope you'll consider liking and sharing this story with your loved ones. And if you'd like to visit again, subscribing will ensure you never miss another adventure. Sweet dreams, and until next time, may your nights be filled with wonder.